Hi, magic lovers. Welcome back for another reading from The Golden Telescope, book 1 in my Jack and the Magic Hat Maker series. I hope you've had a great couple of days. I hope you've had at least a good couple of days. It's been a weird time, weird time. So, last time we read chapters 27 and 28. I think I only read 2 last time. And now we're on chapter 29, Bill and Arthur. So, as always, if you haven't listened to the previous chapters, I hope that you will go back and listen to the other episodes 1 through 14 so that you are caught up. I think it's just 1 through 14. I believe this is episode 15. And you'll know where we are going forward. The last time we ended off with, what did we end off with? Let's see. Last time we ended with, we were in Stockholm, Sweden, and Ethan, Jack's older brother, was talking to Auntie Inez, asking about where his brother and sister are. If she and Clara were responsible for placing them in their various homes when their parents got killed, she must know where his brother and sister are, so where are they? And she let him know that she wasn't prepared to share that information with him and ruin their plans. So now we're moving on to chapter 29, Bill and Arthur. Dublin, Ireland, present day. Jack opened his eyes, and for a moment he thought he must still be dreaming. Directly above him were glossy folds of cornflower blue fabric draped from head to foot across the ornately carved mahogany four-poster bed. Readjusting his position, he pulled the soft linen sheets up to his cheeks and reveled in the fresh scent of lavender clinging to them. He nuzzled the fluffy pillows beneath his head appreciatively, before turning to his right, where he could see heavy drapes in the same shade of blue and pale yellow print hanging from ceiling to floor. I could get used to this. He tossed the thick comforter back and sat up, stretching luxuriously before standing and walking to the windows. Pulling the curtains aside, he was astonished by the expanse of beautifully landscaped grounds before him. A knock on the door startled him. "Come in," he said, turning around. He noticed a blue plaid robe lying across the end of the bed and began pulling it on as Arthur entered the room. "Glad to see you're up, Master Jack," the butler said, as he sat a silver tray on the dresser across the room. "I took the liberty of preparing a small breakfast." And he lifted a silver lid off of a white porcelain plate, revealing buttered toast, eggs, and bacon. "I hope you like them scrambled. I thought they were a safe bet, not knowing how you prefer them." "That looks amazing, Artie. Thanks. I'm starving." Jack walked to the small walnut table in front of the window where the butler was laying out the meal. "I know you Americans fancy coffee over tea, so I brewed a pot. There's cream and sugar, and also some marmalade for your toast." He was turning a china cup right side up onto a small saucer as he spoke. "You know, Master Jack, I've been thinking about our conversation last night and have some thoughts, if you don't mind me sharing." He looked inquisitively at Jack. "Of course. Please do tell, Artie." "Well, it seems to me that in order for us to explore what these visions you keep having are all about, we're going to need that telescope." He paused and looked at Jack, who was taking a sip of coffee. "I guess that does make sense. Are you suggesting we make a trip? Are you suggesting we make a hat trip back to Portland?" Jack put the cup down, picked up the silver fork next to the plate, and scooped up a bit of eggs. "Well, We could do that, but I think that would put you at far too much risk. What with your uncle and aunt and their henchmen, and who knows who else after you." He was pacing the floor, then stopped to look at Jack again. "No, I think it would be best to see if we can get Bart and his dad to come here and bring the telescope with them. Do you think they would be willing to do that?" Arthur asked. Jack almost jumped out of his seat. "Oh, man, that would be awesome! Are you serious?" "Absolutely, if they're willing." Arthur paused. "I'm afraid they will have to travel the traditional way, however." He chuckled. Jack put his index finger to the tip of his nose, deep in thought. "It might be best to contact Pop at the hobby shop instead of calling their cell phones," he said. "You never know who might be listening in." "Good thinking. And probably best if I'm the one making contact. Let's keep you as incognito as possible. Yes?" "Definitely," Jack replied. "Can we do it now?" he asked anxiously. "Bart is going to love this place." Dublin International Airport, Dublin, Ireland. "It's strange to be here. I haven't seen this airport for nearly 10 years, Bill said, as he and Bart stood at the car rental counter inside Dublin International. "If you think it's strange for you," Bart began, "it's weird for me to realize I'm in a foreign country for the first time in my life." "Well, this is actually a great excuse for you to finally meet your grandparents and the rest of the family in person," Bill replied. "I mean, FaceTime is awesome and all, but it's not nearly as good as the real thing." Bill finished as the salesperson handed him the paperwork to sign. He took the keys, then followed her out to where their vehicle was waiting. Bart tagged along, pulling his suitcase behind him as they went. "It's not my SUV, but it will do," Bill laughed as they climbed into the small two-door Kia and buckled up. "The narrow streets over here require something smaller than what we're used to in the States. At least it's an automatic." He put the key into the ignition and started the engine. "Man, I'm exhausted after that flight. How far is the mansion from here?" Bart asked. "Not too far, pal. About a 30-minute drive is all." "At least I know my way around this city," Bill said as he pulled out of the parking lot. "At 6:30 in the morning, traffic should be almost non-existent. So hopefully, we'll make really good time." "I gotta say, I was pretty freaking excited when you told me about Arthur Loyal's phone call, Dad. It's such a relief to know that Jack is safe." "Yeah, I have to admit I was relieved myself. What a wild surprise, though, to hear the butler's voice over the phone after all these years. Especially at the shop. That was totally unexpected." Bill paused, contemplating. "I'm super excited to see Jack again," Bart said, grinning out of the window at the foreign terrain rushing by. The drive time passed quickly, with Bill directing Bart to look at various points of interest and recalling events from his youth as they drove. "Okay, here we are," Bill said, as they turned off the main road onto a narrower driveway that extended quite a ways in front of them with no buildings in sight. Bart looked around, confused. "We're here? Where's the house?" "Oh, we'll see it in a minute or two," Bill said as they turned a corner, the view beyond which was obscured by a small copse of trees. Immediately, a vast expanse of manicured lawns with a large sculptured fountain in the middle emerged in front of them. And just beyond that, MacPayden Manor. Bart inhaled audibly. "Wow," he said. "Jack's in there?" "Yup," Bill replied. "This place was a second home to me when I was your age." He looked at his son with a little grin. Pulling up the drive to the main entrance, a familiar face bolted from the doorway. Jack. Bart! Jack could hardly contain himself as he sprinted down the front steps and across the gravel driveway. Bart bolted from the car before it had even come to a full stop. "Oh, man, I am so glad to see you!" Bart exclaimed, and he threw his arms around Jack, hugging so tightly Jack thought he might burst. "You have no idea," Jack gasped. Hearing this, Bart let him go and they laughed together. Arthur emerged from the entrance and Bill, finally out of the car, met him, hand outstretched. "It's been a very long time now, Arthur. So great to see you again." "Yes, years, Bill. I wish our reunion was due to better circumstances." He paused, looking down momentarily. "I'm so sorry to hear about Master Ross." He looked into Bill's eyes with sincerity. Bill was speechless for a moment. "Yes, such a terrible loss," Bill said quietly. "But on to happier news. Meet my son, Bart." Bill motioned for Bart to join him. "Yes, I've told Arthur all about you," Jack said to Bart. "Meet my new friend, Arthur, the family butler." After introductions, they gathered their things and made their way into the house. "Wow," Bart breathed as he entered the main foyer. "This place is incredible." "I know. Insane, huh?" Jack grabbed Bart's arm. "Come here. You're not going to believe this," he said, and pulled his friend to stand in front of the portrait of Lady Lydia. "That's my Grandma Lydia. Hold on to your hat here, dude. She is the woman who appeared to me in those visions." Jack looked expectantly at his friend, but rather than the excitement he expected, Bart merely nodded. "Yeah, Pop guessed that she might be the woman you've been seeing." "How would he know that?" Jack asked, surprised. "We were talking about all this stuff after your Uncle Earl called Pop to find out if he knew where you were," Bart said. Jack frowned at the last part, and Bart laughed. "Oh, yeah, they totally think you're missing." He turned and waved in Bill's direction. "Hey, Pop, come over here for a sec." Then back to Jack. "Dad did this awesome thing with this old book. He called it a locator spell. So we already knew you were here before Arthur called," Bart finished as Bill joined them. "Is this the lady you were talking about?" Bart pointed up at the portrait of Grandma Lydia. "Jack says that she's the one who appeared to him." Arthur approached and was also standing there, gazing up at the painting with them. "Yes, that's her, Lady MacPaden." Bill glanced at Arthur with a curious look. "Let's get you gentlemen settled into your rooms, and then I'd like to have a chat over brandy with your dad while you boys catch up, if that's acceptable." Arthur looked at Bart, then Jack and Bill. "Yes, you and I have some catching up of our own to do, Arthur," Bill agreed, leaning over to pick up his suitcase. Bill walked out of his bedroom, turned to the right, and came to a stop at the top of the massive open staircase leading down to the main level of the house. Even after all these years, there remained a feeling of familiarity, having spent so much of his youth rambling these halls. To him, it was a bizarre experience being there without his friend, Ross, beside him. Things had never been quite the same in MacPaden Manor after Lady Lydia went missing. Her absence had so dramatically altered the energy in the home and of the family members. Bill would remember that day as long as he lived. MacPaden Manor, Dublin, Ireland, 24 years prior. "Of course, we can collect a lot more varieties here than you would ever find around your house." Ross carried a lidded mason jar with an acetone-saturated cotton ball in the bottom of it. "It'll be much more fun catching bugs with you than it would have been doing it all by myself," Bill said. I hope we find some cool beetles and spiders. Bill also carried a jar in his hand, and they were dashing down the wide staircase toward the main entrance when Sir Edward stepped out of his library. The blood had drained from his face. His lips were a pale shade of purple, and he was breathing rapidly. Ross, get your sisters. I need to talk to the three of you. Now. But Dad, Bill and I were just going to... I said now, Sir Edward shouted with a backward glance over his shoulder as he turned and headed back into the library. Wait in the sitting room over there for a minute, okay? Ross said, pointing across the foyer. Hopefully, this will only take a couple of minutes. He handed his jar to Bill and turned to head back up the stairs, while Bill made his way to the sitting room to wait. Inez, Clara, Dad wants to talk to us, Ross yelled up the stairs. What? What do you want, you little brat? Bill heard the oldest sister respond. Okay, all right then. We're coming. The voices were getting closer, and Bill could hear them more clearly from where he was sitting. What does Daddy want? Did he tell you? Bill recognized Clara's voice at the bottom of the stairs. He could hear the three of them chattering as they moved into the library. He got up from where he had been sitting and peeked around the corner to see if he could hear the conversation better. Bill wasn't used to the energy he felt coming from Sir Edward, and it had been an unsettling experience observing that behavior. Clearly, something was terribly wrong for him to be so short-tempered. Bill was tiptoeing across the foyer when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Startled, he looked up to find the family butler, Arthur, holding a finger to his lips. Using both his hands, he turned Bill by the shoulders and headed him back into the sitting room. You stay put right there, young man, Arthur said, then turned again toward the library. What do you mean, lost? You get her back, he heard Inez shriek. Then there was the sound of running footsteps, muted by loud, disconcerting sobs. Bill watched, wide-eyed, and perched anxiously on the edge of his seat. He didn't know if he should wait for Ross or if it would be better to leave. He could hear footsteps, heavy and slow, coming toward where he was waiting. Then Ross's face appeared, sad and sullen-looking, in the opening to the room. What is it? What's going on? Bill asked as his friend dropped down on the sofa beside him. It's my mum, he started in a whisper. She's gone. Gone? What do you mean, gone? Where did she go? Bill asked. He doesn't know. He sent Mother somewhere with one of his stupid hats, and now he can't get her back. Ross said it flatly, with no emotion in his voice. Bill was perplexed, but he could tell his friend wasn't in any mood to explain things further at that moment, so he reached out and placed his hand on Ross's back. I'm really sorry, Ross. A hand on his own back shook Bill out of his memory. Shall we head down for that brandy now, Bill? Arthur asked. Then as an afterthought added, and would you bring that telescope along with you? Chapter 30. The Plot Thickens. Stockholm, Sweden, present day. Inez's cheeks flushed. What do you mean Jack is gone? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. Earl swallowed on the other end of the line, his small face on her screen appearing wide-eyed and nervous. I'm sorry, Inez. We had him locked in his room. I don't care where he was, Uncle, Inez growled. Explain yourself. Earl shook his head, running a hand through his thinning hair. I can't explain it, he said. We've looked everywhere we can think of that he might be. Victor didn't see him escape his room, and he's not with his best friend." "Can you be sure of that?" Inez interjected impatiently. "Maybe they're hiding him. Maybe they suspect something. Did you consider that possibility?" "Yes, I did. But the father seemed genuinely taken by surprise. He said they had been expecting a text from Jack. They didn't know we had confiscated his phone, so I believe he's not with them." Inez hissed a curse. "Who is our opposition? Who in the order could possibly know of our plans and might be aiding the boy?" "We've been very cautious, Inez. You know that." Earl paused, thinking. "He hasn't had any contact with anyone from the old country, so I can't imagine who might be trying to interfere." "Well, do some investigation. The boy didn't disappear into thin air, Uncle. At least, not without some assistance he didn't. Who has the skills to transport him? Magically, that is. If no one saw him leave the house, then it seems that is the only possible way he could have escaped." Inez locked eyes with the small face on the phone. "What do we know about his friend and his family? Didn't you say that the father owns a hobby shop in downtown Portland?" "Yes, he does. The family seems pretty ordinary. Working class, nothing special. Residents of Portland for several years now. Seem respectable enough. Lizzie and I don't interact with them much." "But he's a small business owner. What's the name of his hobby shop?" Inez asked. "Flanagan's. It's called Flanagan's Hobby Shop. Small space, modest." "Flanagan, you say?" Inez's eyes narrowed. "Why does that name sound so familiar to me?" After a moment, her eyebrows raised almost imperceptibly. "Ah, yes. I believe one of Ross's childhood friends was named." Then she stopped abruptly, her glare freshly ablaze. "His first name. What is the father's first name?" Earl stammered. "Bill. His name is Bill Flanagan." Inez cursed, much more loudly this time. "Idiots! Why am I surrounded by idiots?" she seethed. "Bill Flanagan was Ross's best friend when he was a kid. I can guarantee you that he is the guilty party. Send Victor immediately." Yes, Inez," Earl said, glad to be able to hang up the phone. Exhaling, he turned to his wife, who had been watching the exchange from across the room. "Tell Victor Inez requires his presence. I have a call to make." Lizzie pursed her lips and quickly ushered herself out of the room. Next, Earl pulled out his phone and searched for the number he had never once had to call: Flanagan's Hobby Shop. Pressing the name, he held the phone to his ear. "Thank you for calling Flanagan's Hobby Shop. My name is Eddie. How may I direct your call?" Earl sucked in his cheek before responding. "Bill Flanagan, please." "I'm sorry, you just missed him. Is there anything I can help you with, sir?" Eddie replied. "I'm not sure. This is Earl O'Brien. We have an update on my missing son, and I thought he might like to be made aware." "Oh," Eddie replied, sounding disappointed. "He and his boy left for Ireland this morning due to a family emergency." "I see." Earl's eyes lit up, and he tried to keep his voice steady. "And, he cleared his throat. "Did he mention when they would be back?" "I'm afraid not," Eddie said. "Would you like to leave a message, Mr. O'Brien?" No. That will be all. Thank you," Earl said, slowly pulling the phone away from his ear and hanging up. With a dramatic sigh, he opened up his contacts once again and called Inez. "What now?" she snapped upon answering. "I have news, Inez," Earl said, gazing at her brittle-looking face, glaring back at him through his cell screen. "Bill Flanagan is out of the country, according to the person tending the hobby shop." He sighed again, bracing himself. "In Ireland." Silence. "Apparently, he took his son with him," he added with a note of trepidation in his voice. "There is a plot afoot. I can feel it in my bones," Inez said in a hushed tone. She lifted an index finger to her nose and tapped, deep in thought. But who? Who could be behind this ploy? It seems clear that Jack must be in Ireland, too. Otherwise, why the sudden trip for Bill and his boy? Conveniently, at the same time, Jack mysteriously disappeared. No, this is not a coincidence. It seemed she wasn't really talking to Earl, more thinking out loud as she gazed at something across the room. "You say Bill Flanagan was Ross's friend when they were young?" Earl interrupted her train of thought. "Then perhaps he still has family in Ireland." "Yes, I do recall meeting his parents a time or two, at some dinner party or another that Mother and Father hosted at the manor." She was squinting, and her eyebrows were bunched together in a deep crease forming between them. "Aha!" she exclaimed, thrusting her pointy finger into the air. "I've got it! If I remember correctly, Bill's parents were also members of the Order of Light with Father. So that means," she trailed off. "That means they are magic workers," Earl finished her sentence. The call fell into silence. All right, and that's the end for today. I hope you've enjoyed the reading. Next time, so today's Friday, I'll be reading again on Monday, Chapter 31, The Heir Apparent, Stockholm, Sweden, present day. It's getting close to the end. Only a few more chapters left. So, if you've liked this reading, I hope that you will give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please do ring that bell so you get notifications every time I upload new content, which I typically do 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Have a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you again soon. Take good care.